Sister Adlina Raza. She is a master's student, and myself, of course, an academic in the Department of Communication, AHAS KRKHS. So welcome to the session that will end at around 9 p.m. I will soon distribute the attendance so that you can fill in the attendance and you can get your e-certs and star points, inshallah. Yeah, so more towards the end of the session. Right? Okay. So Adlina, the floor is yours.
Okay, should we start now, everyone?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adlina. I'm a PG student from IUM. Let me just share my screen with you guys. Hold on. Okay, are you guys seeing it now? Okay.
Yep. You have to put on slideshow.
Yeah. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Okay, to start with, the topic for today's webinar is Synthesizing Tawhidic Epistemology into Integrated Communication Planning, which is ICP. Along the presentation, I will use use TE as Tawhidic Epistemology in the slides because it's too long. So an introduction, just to briefly explain, Tawhidic Epistemology refers to unity of all knowledge under Allah, in which basically saying that all knowledge comes from Allah and all knowledge should go back to Allah. And ICP refers, which is Integrated Communication Planning, refers to strategic coherent communication across channels. So why would we want to integrate these two? Is to foster ethical and value-driven communication. So moving on, first, I will go in depth on what is Tawhidic Epistemology. So Tawhidic Epistemology comes from the word Tawhid, which is a fundamental concept in Islam, referring to the oneness and unity of God, which is Allah. And in most cases, Tawhid serves as a foundation upon which all Islamic theology and philosophy is built. So Tawhidic Epistemology is a framework centered on the oneness of Allah, and under it there are three main principles under Tawhidic Epistemology. First being unity of knowledge from Tawhid, which is oneness of God, in which all knowledge comes from Allah. And despite having modern knowledge or rational knowledge, as what is being discussed by the scholars, we believe, most scholars and me personally, I do believe that even the modern knowledge should be related back to Tawhid. And yeah, okay. And second is Tawhidic epistemology helps to bridge spiritual and rational knowledge, in which, like I said just now, modern knowledge and rational modern thinking should still be reflected back. Related back to what we have learned in the Quran, Hadith, and Sunnah, as well as rational thinking and ijma. Like the discussion of the scholars. Specifically in our context, our time, we don't have, like previously during the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam time, the Quran and Hadith was documented then. Tapi now we are, like, for now, our current situation allows us to to also follow the ijma of the ulama. Yes. And third is Tawhidic epistemology promotes ethical and community-centered decision making. Again, going back to ijma, like when we are, whatever we do, when we are referring to Tawhidic epistemology, we are thinking of the community as community well-being as a whole, not just one person. Yeah. And the concept of Tawhidic epistemology also emphasized that true knowledge must acknowledge this unity with God. And again, going back to Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, and Ijma Ulama, as well as rational thinking, our rector Osman Baka also argues that the identity and knowledge of the knowledge crisis currently experienced by the contemporary Muslim society is actually attributed largely due to a significant loss in Tawhidic epistemology, meaning to say that the philosophers and scholars now think that we are no longer putting Tawhidic epistemology as a we are no longer putting Tawhid at the core of whatever knowledge that we're gaining. And because of that, the Ummah is not advancing forward as we did previously during the Khalifa's time. Okay. And Tawhidic epistemology also allows, by the concept of Tawhidic epistemology also allows contemporary Muslim to engage with modern challenges while remaining anchored in their fundamental belief. So again, going back to knowing whatever you do, going back to Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, and the scholars' decision. So there are three characteristics of Tawhidic epistemology. First being all knowledge derives from Allah. And second, it requires empirical and ethical integration through which it is holistic. It's not just one side of knowledge, it covers all. And third is it supports ummah and ethical responsibility in which whatever, again, going back to whatever we do, we are doing it for the sake of ummah and betterment of everyone as a whole, not just one person. There, based on the reading, I found that there are two objectives of Tawhidic epistemology, in which first is personal enlightenment for your own for your betterment as a person, and community welfare is especially highlighted a lot by the scholars, and also to prove its relevance in modern context and adherence to Tawhidic principles. So sorry, okay. So these the black writings here are except from the papers that I found. I've been reading, and this is my summary that covers these two characteristics and objectives. So we have, I believe, covered. I mean, everyone can have somehow understood what Tawhid epistemology is. So moving on to integrated communication planning. ICP is a strategic approach that combines various communication methods and channels to achieve goals more effectively. So it's harmonizing various communication efforts across different channels to convey a coherent message. And the goal of ICP is to attain organizational goals through synchronous communication efforts. So again, the fonts in brown are like excerpts from literature, previous literature discussing ICP, in which for as of now, ICP has actually been integrated. I mean, is applicable in various sectors such as health, education, and governance. In most cases, ICP focuses on coherence and stakeholder alignment. Okay. So key concepts and principle of ICP include, the first one is, of course, to break silos. Silos is isolation and improve coherence. So in an organizational setting, it is important for, ICP work as a it's not tool. ICP helps to prevent isolation, in which it helps to synchronize all communication effort and ensure that communication is being made at every level, not just like the management level, and the blue collars worker are not aware of whatever decision. ICP requires it requires everything to be communicated to everyone. So it helps to break isolation and improve coherence. Second one, it's stakeholder engagement, in which again ICP ensures that all stakeholders are being communicated at, and and the last one being there is always evaluation for adaptive planning, in which ICP is not just a one-time process; it is an ongoing process. Whatever in which whatever happened in an organization is always being communicated, and through each communication effort being made, we are learning something on how to improvise our communication. Okay, and the principles that govern ICP. There are three principles governing ICP. First is consistency, ensuring that message remain aligned across all communication platform. Clarity, ensuring that messages are delivered in a manner that is easily understood by the target audience. And coherence involves maintaining a clear relationship among various communication elements. Okay. So there have been previous literature discussing the integration of Tawhidic epistemology, not specifically on ICP, but then Alfian et al. 2021 have discussed on integrating Islamic education. I mean, the current education system only integrate Islamic knowledge on a surface level. So he is advocating for a more strategized and in-depth Islamic knowledge integration in education, our current education system. And then Agustina and Zainuddin discusses on how local Islamic, um, I mean, like the community, once they are aware of, they have better Islamic awareness, it actually resulted in in the strengthening of the community trust. And Kamarin et al. Discusses business ethics from Islamic values through Tawhidic epistemology framework. So, why are we integrating Tawhidic epistemology into ICP? First is because it adds ethical integrity. Second is it helps to align our communication needs or work with Tawhid and the concept of Khilafah in Islam. And second, it deepens trust and cultural relevance, particularly in our context, in our society. So, moving on to Tawhidic epistemology as a framework for ICP. Tawhidic epistemology is grounded in the concept of oneness and of Allah, and Tawhidic epistemology is a framework that helps to inform and shape ICP. So, by understanding these principles of ICP can guide ethically and socially responsible communication practice. Organizations can develop strategies that resonates with the ethical mandates of Islam. So I'll discuss this. Okay. So one way that Tawhidic epistemology can influence ICP is by promoting transparency, accountability, and ethical practice. So what do I mean by this? Okay, I have actually discussed this with Dr. Ida previously, in which actually in our current society, a lot of the communication practitioners or even advertisers, people working in corporate, doing marketing, advertising, they are somehow they somehow separate the concept of Tauhid and their work, which is ICP. But in my opinion and my reading, I believe that actually it should not be separated. In which, especially as a Muslim, first thing first is you have to be aware that whatever you do, you are accountable. Referring to the concept of accountability, you are going to be accounted later in the akhirah. We have the hereafter. So obviously, if you as an advertiser, you are promoting a product, will you lie? Will you lie to your customer? Will you overclaim that your product can do this when actually it's not? And the concept of transparency goes to, again, as a marketer or advertiser, are you being transparent in promoting your product? Are you, if you're aware that there are side effects in which it can endanger the community, the welfare of a person or community, would you still promote it just for the sake of selling it? Or are you reflecting back, like, I have to be transparent about what this product can do and what are the side effects? Because again, the concept of tawhid requires you to think for the ummah as a whole. And yeah, you have to be transparent by promoting transparency, accountability, and ethical practice. And I also discussed it with Ataida. I was saying to her, as a Muslim, first I don't understand why Muslim advertisers or marketers are separating these two. And another thing that I was discussing with Ataida is why macam maybe instead of using the word Tawhidic epistemology, we can rephrase this into ethical consideration, macam some sort of macam ethical consideration, ethical practice, because actually transparency, accountability, and everything, all this are just you being honest with whatever that you're dealing. It is I think it is the basis of a human, that these are the morals that you have in whatever you do. Okay. Okay, going back to this. Okay, so fostering channels, Tawhidic epistemology also allows fostering channels of communication that reflects the principles of Tawhidic epistemology. By doing this, organizations can enhance their messages' authenticity and relevance, and thus effectively bridging cultural gaps in diverse environments. So again, if you are transparent and you are aware of whatever that you're doing, in return, like in the long run, macam okay, obviously in the short run, macam maybe people will macam think, is this legit? But then over time, when people see that, oh, actually this company, whatever they are promoting, whatever they are doing it honestly. They are being transparent. They know that there are bigger things that they are going for. Then it will helps bridge cultural gaps, especially in diverse environments. Yeah. Um, Okay, so again, the concept of Tawhid promotes ethical communication practices, reinforcing a sense of responsibility among communicators to engage transparently and honestly while adhering to moral standards laid out in the Islamic teachings. Okay, and again, like I said, this is whatever. Okay, one thing that I realize when I'm doing my readings about all this topic is actually whatever being discussed in Tawhidic epistemology is just you being a morally upright person. Like, will you lie? Will you just say whatever, just say, or just for the sake of selling something? Or are you transparent? Are you honest? Are you aware that you are accountable for whatever things that you are saying, you are doing, you are promoting? And in the context of social responsibility, Tawhid calls for a commitment to community well-being and social justice. Okay. So next, okay. So discuss. I mean, like, how we can synthesize Tawhidic epistemology into ICP is first, due to the holistic nature of Tawhidic knowledge, it contributes to developing integrated communication strategies by promoting coherence across various messaging platforms. So, this being said, integrating spiritual, moral, intellectual, and personal dimensions into communication strategies, organizations can create more relatable and impactful messages that resonate with diverse audience. Okay, second is the integration of Tawhidic epistemology into ICP also encourage a comprehensive understanding of implication of various messages and campaigns in which we align communication strategies with the foundational values of Tawhid, which is again transparency, accountability, and advocating for the well-being of the community as a whole. It allows organizations to achieve a coherent and unified approach to messaging. In return, helps to cultivate a strong brand identity that reflects ethical commitment and social responsibility. This is what I said earlier about like maybe the result of integrating ICP into, I mean, integrating Tawhid epistemology into ICP is not a short or apa? Sorry, a sh- the result cannot be seen in a short period of time, but over time, it will actually reflect your ethical commitment and social responsibility in the society. Okay. And last one being the principles derived from Tawhid also advocates for a stakeholder engagement as a fundamental component of effective communication. Again, remember that we also have advocating for the well-being of the society as a whole. So when we integrate the Tawhidic epistemology in ICP, it allows us to recognize the shared humanity and interconnectedness of all individuals. So organizations are able to foster dialogue, open dialogue, seek feedback, and actively involve stakeholders in the communication. And again, this is a collaborative approach, which is obviously rooted in the Tawhid, enables organizations to respond to societal needs effectively and sustainably, and thus enhancing the overall impact of their communication efforts. Next, I'll be discussing on the challenges in synthesizing Tawhidic epistemology in ICP. So first is obviously even in Malaysia we have a diverse society. We have like let's say Chinese, Indian, Malays, Muslim, and other people from other religion. So there might I mean issues of effectively communicating with diverse audience may have that have varying levels of understanding or adherence to Islamic values may be an issue, because again we are using the word Tawhidic epistemology, and I actually discussed this with Dr. Aida. I think there are people out there of let's say other religions who feels like, oh, this is an Islamic approach, so it's not applicable to us, or like, oh, this is what your religion wants you to do, so it has nothing to do with me. They would have this kind of mindsets. Okay. Second challenge is in balancing the upholding of Islamic principles with the needs to respect different cultural norms different cultural norms. So again, in Malaysia, we have people from different races, different religion. So what we want to do, what is okay with us might not be okay with them. So again, it goes back to the issue of having diverse audience values. And there are also the risk of misinterpreting or misusing Islamic concepts in communication. Like I said, some people feel like, oh, this is Islamic. So, like as the non-Muslim, we have nothing to do. But the thing about Tawhidic epistemology is, it calls for you to be morally responsible, ethical. I would say that. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like being transparent, being honest, being accountable for whatever you do is just the basis of what humans should do. And obviously, the increasing influence of secularism and materialism also poses a significant challenge when we are promoting a value based communication rooted specifically in Tawhid principles. Because, like what we can see online, like let's say on TikTok, on Instagram, people are just promoting their product. Like they didn't care of like what are the side effects, what are the consequences, long term, short term, of using their product, or they are just out there to just sell. Not like thinking of like, okay, like will this result in something bad? Am I being like responsible when promoting whatever? However, there are also opportunities in synthesizing Tawhidic epistemology in ICP. First, being Tawhidic epistemology offers a robust framework for developing ethical communication practice, which in return can help build trust and credibility with audiences over time. And the holistic nature of Tawhidic knowledge encourages communicators to address social and environmental issues in a responsible manner. So it's not just simply addressing something because something happened, something requires you to do. It requires you to plan. Like how am I going to like there are things macam like when you are planning a communication effort, you would have had this in mind, and you would already discuss this because it's like it covers all. And Tawhid also provides a conducive framework in promoting constructive dialogue between different cultures and faith. Um, and last but not least, it integrates traditional Islamic values with modern communication techniques, which can lead to innovative and impactful campaigns over time. So next, I will actually be discussing. Okay, so overall, I think I have discussed Tawhidic epistemology and ICP and the integration of these two. And I know I keep on mentioning like it's not two different things. It should be one. Tawhidic epistemology and ICP should be synthesized. Uh, okay, but the case studies that I'll be discussing might be macam okay. So all this macam like it's kind of like low key adding synthesizing Tawhid epistemology into ICP. But my case studies would highlight like high key effort of doing this. First one being Qatar Charity. Qatar Charity is actually a prominent humanitarian organization which actively promote Islamic principles through various social development programs such as poverty alleviation, education, and healthcare initiative. So, if you're not aware, Qatar Charity is again a humanitarian organization. So, what they do is they would do ads. I mean, like, so they help people. They help people to ask for. I mean, they ask for sedekah and zakat from people around the community, and how they do it is through digital advertisement slash influencer collaboration. So I don't know if any of you have ever had ads from Qatar Charity coming up on your Instagram or TikTok, but how they embrace Islamic epistemology in their campaigns is they align the campaigns with the fundamental of Islamic values of charity and voluntary giving, which is sedekah. And Qatar Charity also strongly emphasize the Islamic values of zakat and sedekah. So it's not just limited to, the recipients of these programs are not just limited to Muslims. So um, it highlights that, it highlights the concept of sedekah and zakat in Islam, but then it also highlights that it's not just limited to Muslim. It is for the community or society, the well-being of the society as a whole. So again, I think for the concept of integrating Tawhidic epistemology into ICP, Qatar Charity serves as an example of how communication initiative can reflect the principle of Islamic values in a more bold and direct way. As for the second one is the case study of Jakim. If you're not aware, Jakim is our local jabatan. Okay, so Jakim is the
Islamic Development Department,
Islamic
Islamic
Development
Development
Department.
Department.
Okay, all right. So Jakim, basically what Jakim does is it promotes Islamic values and family development programs and ethical practices, which aligns with Islamic teaching. So actually, okay, I think everyone knows Jakim with, everyone associates Jakim with halal. But then actually, Jakim has also been doing other programs such as Satu Malaysia, Satu Baca, which translate to One Malaysia, One Book slash One Read, in which they promote every Malaysian family to have at least one religion book in which you can gain knowledge from. And specific to this context, they are referring to the concept of as a Muslim, you should always gain knowledge, regardless of whatever age that you are. And that there is this word uqrubul ilman walau fi sin, which is gain knowledge even if you have to go to China. So yeah, this is what Jakim is trying to do. And the second being again halal standards, in which they advocate for the concept of halal and cleanliness to be practiced by all food food by restaurants.
Food
So
operator.
food operators, yes, sorry. Okay, so Jakim has involved themselves in various public awareness campaign which promotes Islamic values, family development, and ethical practices in business and media. Oh, actually, to some extent, Jakim also helps to regulate the whatever that the media portrayal of Islam, like when there are cases of Islamic actors, actresses, or whatever issues that are like can be related to Islamic punya cases. Jakim also covers this. So Jakim's initiatives aims to align with Islamic teaching, emphasizing the relevance of these values in daily life and governance. So again, reflecting the Islamic principle of knowledge being vital for personal and community development. And Jakim public awareness campaign illustrate how principles of ethical epistemology can inform slash Tawhidic epistemology can inform and shape communication strategies aimed at promoting values within the community. However, research have been discussing on the level, on the effectiveness and the varying level or interpretation of Islam by these campaigns from Jakim. Because again, we are a multiracial country with diverse people from different background, a different religion. So somehow all this concept does pose challenges that requires continuous engagement and dialogue between Jakim and the society in order to ensure its effectiveness. And yeah. So my recommendation is again, I know I do discuss on how like you can integrate ICP, integrate Tawhidi epistemology into ICP. But again, there should, I think, okay, first is creating an Islamic ICP toolkit. But okay, first is this one. Obviously, among Muslim ICP practitioners, we should like there should be like a session where we discuss this openly with the ICP practitioners and like see how they think they can reflect this back in their work. So I think when we do this kind of conversation, we might be able to provide an Islamic ICP toolkits that can be uh, shared with future ICP practitioners, especially Muslims. Um, and going to the second point, which is integrating it into education and training. When we know like how we are going to carry this out, and like from the current ICP practitioners POV, like what can we do to help you to integrate this, synthesize Tawhidic epistemology in ICP. We can help future ICP practitioners by educating them about this topic and providing trainings for them. And second is, like I said, there are also ICP practitioners from different races, different religion. So maybe if we do an interfaith slash cross cultural dialogue with them, then we might be able to see how, like, what are through what lens can we help them to also synthesize Tawhidi epistemology into ICP. But maybe what we can do is by using a different term, like an ethical term, like ethical framework, or like yeah, macam like try to macam like how we can help them to how they can help us to understand on how we can um, synthesize Tawhidi into ICP and put it to practice instead of just discussing it online. And the conclusion, obviously, Tawhid epistemology into implementing into contemporary communication context entails navigating challenges related to diversity, cultural sensitivity, and secular influences, especially in Malaysia. I think we can see that there are, I mean, recently there are obviously an increase in our secular influences in which people are becoming more formal to just purchase whatever. And you can see that actually the advertisers, marketers are riding on the trend, whatever trend that is going on, they are riding on it just for the sake of selling their stuff. And again, I think that is absolutely contradicting with the concept of transparency and accountability. Okay, so that, but also the principles of Tawhid also present substantial opportunities for building trust, promoting social responsibility, fostering dialogue, and driving innovation in communication strategies. Specifically, I think for in the long run, because I think now, I mean, the result is definitely not something that you can see like short term, especially if you are just starting to look for, I think, like if you have always been doing stuff the traditional way, or like the western way, then it might take a while for you to adjust and for you to see the result if you are integrating Tawhid epistemology into your current practice. But also, if you leverage on these principles effectively, organizations can create more integrated and coherent communication efforts that resonates with their audiences while adhering to ethical guidelines grounded in Islamic teaching. And I actually have a question for everyone. So, how can you apply Tawhidic epistemology in your context? Not just ICP practitioners, but also as a student, as whatever that you are now, as a student, as a daughter, as a parent, as a educator. Like how do you think you can apply Tawhidic epistemology in your context, and how do you feel about it? Do you think Tawhidic epistemology is a very Islamite concept, or is this something that has to do with your morals? So that is my question for you guys. Yeah, in and if you guys want to scan, if you have for Star Points collection and inserts, you can scan the QR, because yeah, I think that's all from me for now. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, everyone.
Right. Okay, this QR code is leading us to fill in the form. Is it?
To in a form, and from
Fill
that,
in the form. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So you created a form, but this is the QR code. All right. Okay. So I mean, it's we can also have a group photo before we go. So
Yeah.
does anybody have any insights into how you could apply, isn't it? That was your
Mhm.
question. How
Uh-uh.
could you apply Tawhidic epistemology to your context? Yeah, to your context. And yeah, how could you do it? Does anybody have any suggestions or any insights into how we could do this? Maybe Brother Hasanul Bari, yeah, our PG student as well, isn't it? Yeah, another PG student who would like to. Yep. Why don't you tell us how could you apply what the rector has been talking about, isn't it? Right, a lot. That's sort of what I see as being the direction of the university. So Hasanul, how can
Yes,
you apply Tawhidic epistemology to your
Dr. Ahmed,
context?
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Uh, I think this is the main purpose of Islamic University, and I think this has been created a new worldview of integration of Islamic knowledge. So I think we should have more research, academic discussions, webinars, seminars, and scholarly publications through such kind of activity. And we should have more collaborations between the mainstream universities and the Islamic universities, mainstream scholars and the Islamic scholars. This is simply a worldview. This is not different from the Western perspective or the modern knowledge. So this is this might be a epistemology which is for, well, not only for Muslims, for Western perspective. This can be followed in Oxford and even the which we call the best universities. So in every academia this will not be different, this will be just a single worldview. I think so through this kind of activity we can promote Tawhidic epistemology. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting when he says that, everybody is going to be accepting of it, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
And yet when we go out there, we do see people a little bit confused or skeptical or resistant, I suppose, even to the whole idea of even applying the Islamic perspective. Yeah. So what do you think about that? You were saying that the high key and low key elements of Tawhidic epistemology, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you gave were like the more obvious, explicit examples.
Yeah. Because I think I discussed this with you also, like asking like how do you, like, because you have met a lot of practitioners and like people from the marketing advertising punya world, and like when we actually discuss with them, like when we ask them about like how do you feel like as a Muslim, like just you as a Muslim, when you have to be ethical, responsible, authentic, and knowing that you're being accounted for whatever that you do, how do you feel about it? They actually resisted in some sense because they said, oh, that is macam so Islamic. But again, like I said, this is just something that is whatever that the Tawhid requires you to do is also like the moral of you as a person. Like it should macam there is not much difference, like whatever, like how we are being brought up with all these morals by our parents. It is also what is being required by the like when we are discussing it from the Tawhidic epistemology punya context. But I think now, because we are so accustomed to the West and how they do things, and again the West, they have no for them there is no repercussions of whatever they do, and they are just doing it for the sake of doing it. But yeah, I think macam it's still, I mean, when you go out there, it's still very, they put it like into different perspective. Like, okay, like the whatever I'm doing, ICP, marketing advertisement is one thing, but Islam is one thing. Like, okay, maybe I do pray, maybe I need, but then if my work requires me to lie, my work requires me to say whatever, I would still do it.
Right. So it's not really holistically applying
Yeah.
the Islamic perspective, isn't it? It's only in the more obvious ibadah elements, but
Yeah.
not in totality. Why do you think, we were also discussing about why is this happening, isn't it? Right? Why is it that when people talk about advertising or marketing communication, IMC, they would say, oh, the Islamic perspective doesn't apply. Islam does not apply to to advertising, or in this case integrated communication planning, or whatever. They're separate elements altogether. Why do you think? Remember we spoke about it. the fact that there's this lack of clear understanding of the Islamic worldview.
Mm.
They don't understand that Islam is applicable to everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
I think it just goes back to how they perceive things in life. Macam
Mm.
they already separate. Like, okay, me as a Muslim is one thing, but as a person working in this department, I'm like another thing. So I'm just going to do whatever that is in trend, whatever that is required. But then it goes back to, maybe as a Muslim, do you sit back and think, like, okay, I'm going to be accounted. Like, even like, let's say today I went out, I'm wearing like whatever clothes. Am I aware that I'm being accounted for it? Like, do I put that in mind when I choose that clothes, when I'm doing something? Or for me, I'm a Muslim, but at what is required of me to do as a Muslim, as in salat, zakat, fasting, but like in the concept of like in my daily life, do I think of like me as a Muslim being my identity, my personality, or is this my other personality that, okay, at the end of the day, I am a Muslim. Yeah, I
Right.
think maybe you are just separating, macam, especially now we can see macam there are macam like with everything that's going on, we do have that identity that we separate from us. Like, Muslim is one thing, tapi at my macam like the other side of me, macam I want to be someone yang being deemed as outgoing, brave, willing to do whatever it takes. But then, like, these principles, is it aligned with what the Islam requires us to do lah?
Mm.
Mm.
So perhaps that's why there's this different idea or understanding of the fact that Islam cannot be applied to advertising, because they see advertising as a different form altogether, as something separate and should be accounted for on its own, right? Rather than, but then we talk about transparency, isn't it? Yeah, clarity in messages rather than ambiguity, and then we can't exaggerate, and we've got to say the truth, and ironically, that all leads to tawhid, isn't it? Right? For the sake of Allah, isn't it? Right? For the
Yeah.
sake of Allah. I suppose there's that sort of gap, isn't it? Yeah, between there's no linkage in that way. It's only ethical because everybody's talking about it, because it's trendy, because you're required to do that, because the regulations say you've got to be ethical, but there's no real reflection upon upon the whole thing about being ethical and why we need to be ethical, why we need to be ethical, isn't it? Right? Meaning to say, it's not only because people expect us to, but because Allah expects us to.
Yeah, and because we are like, in the end, we're going to be accounted later. But that's why I said, whatever that you do now, you're going to be accounted later. So how are you going to manage your communication efforts, communication planning?
Yeah.
Sure that whatever you do now, you will still be fine in the hereafter.
Yes. And the fact that there are effects to communication. Communication can have effects, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
You can change people's perception of reality, isn't it? Right? You can make people focus on certain angles, isn't it? Right? Of news stories as well. Agenda setting gives prominence, isn't it, to certain aspects, right? Of to affect public opinion, isn't it? Of a news story to affect public opinion, giving salience, more visibility to certain areas, isn't it? Certain angles, because they want a particular effect to happen. So we're always talking about effects. And so when you don't incorporate the Tawhidic epistemology or the Islamic perspective, then when you don't incorporate this in your messages as you're producing them, then what kind of effect are we looking at, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Is that they could be negative effects, that we are normalizing what shouldn't be normalized, in other words, because of the nature of communication is, of course, to be effective and to repeat, isn't it? To be repetitive, so that it can be recalled, it can be executed, right? The messages can be executed, can be embraced, can be adopted, and so forth. So there are effects that we're looking for. We have goals when we come up with integrated communication planning. There are goals, there are target audiences, there's the media. So when we are not responsible, we were talking about this in another webinar yesterday in our forum, in our virtual forum, whereby there are people who seem to think that just because social media has loose regulations, they feel that, oh, we can put women as sex objects on social media because the regulations are loose and nobody's going to catch us, right? Hopefully. And the thing is, the effect is you want people to follow you. You want to increase the number of followers. So it doesn't matter how you get there, you just get there. You know what I mean? And the thing is, the end does not justify the means. That's it. The end does not justify the means. So why can't you be um, more responsible in producing messages and not normalizing this depiction of women as sex objects, because women should be treated with dignity, not as sex objects, right? So you're normalizing this image for the sake of the effect of getting more followers, which is just simply irresponsible. And of course, you are more careful. Yeah, some people are more careful with messages put on TV because, of course, the regulations are tighter there, right? So it should come from you, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, it just goes back to how you as a person view things. That's why I said, if you are someone who view your identity as Islam as a separate thing, and you as whatever that you're working as is a different thing, then whatever that you do might not be aligned with whatever Islam taught us to do. Like when you said like depicting women as a sex object, or like a mean to get followers, that is just what the people from the Jahiliyah time do. Like they view women just as that. But then in Islam, like we have discussed, like the Prophet has like worked so hard to improve, I mean, like to raise our standard. But then like if I mean, especially this discourse is, I mean, not just between the ICP practitioners, but if you go on social media such as Twitter, threads, you can see a lot of like Muslim men discussing this. And like, I mean, they have like their Muslim name there, but then they discuss this, and it just shows like how you are not thinking. Like there is no concept of you knowing that you're being accounted for what you're saying. And that just shows like from which angle you are thinking. Especially on social media, I think that is one thing that really should be taken into context, not just as an practitioner, but just you as a Muslim. Like how, like are you not aware that you're going to be accountable later?
They don't see the implications of their actions and the effects of their actions.
Yeah, it's nice to say whatever now, but like later, like how are you going to answer?
Yeah. I think it's such an interesting topic, especially when you deal with the diverse audiences. We had our brother just now who said that it's going to be brother Hassanul is going to be acceptable everywhere, but yet when we go out there seems to be, isn't it, right? There seems to be people questioning, commenting that religion and communication, religion and advertising don't go together. And we realize that as a university, the IIUM has the responsibility, isn't it? As us coming from the IIUM, we have the responsibility, it seems, to educate people about how things should be done, right? And the application of TE, Tawhidic epistemology, isn't it, right? After all, it's leading you back to the fundamentals, isn't it? It's leading you back to the idea that there's the oneness of Allah above all, isn't it, right? That should be your main purpose, isn't it? Reminding us and communicating about this. So Adlina, any last comments you think you'd like to make before we take a group photo? It's almost 9.
I feel like when discussing, I mean, I know I'm discussing this from just the ICP context, but I feel like that's what my question is, how you can apply Tawhidic epistemology in your context. Because again, upon reading material, I found out like actually this is just like your core value. So I hope that after this discussion, everyone can go back and think like, how am I applying this? Because it's not just something. It's not something that is different, that much different from your value as a person. It's just it's there, but like how are you? Macam like how are you being more aware of it, and how are you trying? How do you try to be more aware of it? Is one thing, and like how does it lead you to decide whatever things that you should do? I think lah, macam it's not macam I know I'm focusing on ICP. I should be focusing on ICP, but I feel like it's more than that. It should be integrated in synthesized in whatever we do, not just ICP. But again, like in the ICP practice, this should be discussed more. And I feel myself it's not just limited to Muslim practitioners. This should also, like I said, like maybe we can reframe it as an ethical approach or ethical framework instead of using Tawhidic epistemology. But yeah, I think that's all for
Right.
me. Mhm.
So it's the rebranding of the
Yeah, I
whole.
think if UIA is going to do something about it, if we are going to educate the practitioners, the public about it, then maybe we can do it in a more subtle way,
Mhm.
in which like even the non-Muslim would be interested
Mhm.
to learn about it.
But
Mm.
remember my paper on Islamic and Western ethics
Okay.
in advertising? Yeah. So how would you address the Islamic ethics being different from Western ethics in many ways? Is that as in the sources of Islamic ethics is the Quran and the Sunnah? Yeah.
Mm. I don't know.
It's quite tricky, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. But like, I don't know. Macam I feel like macam okay, maybe we just macam that's what, kan I did ask you like last time like how do you think like the Chinese? I was referring to the Chinese and Indians because like the multiracial country that we're in. I was asking, did you actually ask any Chinese and Indian about how they feel about it? And you say actually there's no research, like no one has actually asked them directly. So macam that is one thing that if anyone is doing a research, macam I would be interested to know how do actually macam like I mean like the concept of Tawhidic epistemology or just like it being an ethical framework, like how do like people from other different religion and races feel about it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Should we take a group photo?
Yes. Sorry. Anyone have a question? No. Okay.
The presentation was really amazing, sister. Best wishes.
Thank you. Have everyone scanned for the start point and insert? Can I give everyone 1 minute to just make sure that it's done?
Yep. Okay.
All right.
All right. So shall we take a group photo?
Yes. Can everyone turn on the camera, please?
Is there anybody turning on their cameras? Come.
Come. I know, honey, Alif. Come on, turn your camera. Balkis, Najwa Nurdin. Okay, hi Balkis. Okay. Okay, let's do exactly 9. Let's take a group photo at exactly 9. So you guys can like prepare. 1 minute to prepare. Hi Alif. Okay, it's okay, Isa. Okay, lagi? Okay, no one else?
I thought Honey said a minute just now.
Yeah, I think I saw her. She's there. She's next. Yeah. Anyone else? No? tak apa, let's take the photo now. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. Last one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you everyone. Any question?
So much. Yeah, any questions? No? Okay, so let's end with our ask. Thank you so much, Adlina,
Thank you, Doctor.
for imparting on Tawhidic epistemology and integrated communication planning. So let's do Surah Al-As and Tasbih Kepada. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Thank you, Brian. Assalamualaikum.
wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Permission to leave.
Thank you.